Imagine waking up on a Saturday morning in the 1970s or 80s. Bright colors, wild heroes, strange villains. Yet beneath the laughter and sugar-coated cereal jingles, some cartoons carried darker undertones, reckless messages, or wild controversies that today's networks would never allow. These weren't just shows. They were experiments, accidents, sometimes even scandals. Let's count down 20 Saturday morning cartoons that simply wouldn't make it past censors today. The Funky Phantom, 1971. When Hanna-Barbera launched The Funky Phantom, they hoped to replicate Scooby-Doo's success. Instead, they gave kids a ghost who cracked revolutionary war jokes and sipped spirit tonics. The premise followed teens solving mysteries with Jonathan Wellington, Mudsie Muddlemore, a ghost accidentally freed from a grandfather clock. The issue? The ghost often drank mysterious brews for courage, depicted suspiciously like alcohol. Parents' groups complained that this normalized substance use for children. Critics also blasted its recycled plots, accusing it of being a lazy Scooby-Doo clone. Behind the scenes, Hanna-Barbera faced pressure from ABC to churn out more content quickly, leading to reused animation cells and rushed scripts. Viewers tuned out fast. After only one season, it vanished from television, later resurfacing on niche DVD sets. Today, its boozy ghost antics would raise red flags instantly. In hindsight, The Funky Phantom feels less like harmless fun and more like a cautionary tale of network desperation. Inch High, Private Eye, 1973. What if your detective hero stood only 1 inch tall? That was the oddball concept behind Hanna-Barbera's Inch High, Private Eye. Marketed as a quirky spy spoof, it followed a miniature detective solving crimes with slapstick stunts. The controversy came from its portrayal of bumbling law enforcement and clumsy crime solving. Parent groups argued it trivialized policing during a decade when public trust in institutions was already fragile. Others complained about its strange fixation on size. Critics accused it of mocking physical differences. Production troubles didn't help. NBC wanted more family-friendly laughs, but writers leaned into absurdity, giving inch-high gadgets that often failed spectacularly. The series was axed after a single season, dismissed as one of Hanna-Barbera's weakest efforts. Today, the show's insensitive jokes about body image and its mocking take on authority would be deemed far too risky. Still, fans who grew up with Inch High remember it as bizarre, fleeting, and unforgettable. Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle, 1976. CBS revived Tarzan for kids in the mid-70s, promising adventure and moral lessons. Instead, they stumbled into colonial tropes that modern audiences would find unacceptable. The animated Tarzan swung through jungles battling tribal villains, depicted with stereotypical features and broken speech. Civil rights groups criticized the series, warning it reinforced harmful stereotypes about African cultures. CBS tried softening the scripts, giving Tarzan more of a conservationist edge, but the damage was done. International markets censored or outright banned episodes. Animation budgets were tight, forcing Filmation to reuse backgrounds constantly, adding to its clunky reputation. Still, it lasted 4 seasons, proving that kids cared more about jungle fights than cultural nuance. Today, Tarzan's portrayal as a white savior dominating caricatured natives would never survive. It's a relic of pulp adventure stripped of context, an echo of a bygone era when networks ignored cultural sensitivity. The Super Globetrotters, 1979. By the late 70s, the Harlem Globetrotters were pop culture icons, beloved for their basketball wizardry and comedic flair. Hanna-Barbera decided to turn that fame into a superhero cartoon, the Super Globetrotters. The concept? Each basketball player transformed into a costumed superhero with bizarre powers, like Spaghetti Man, who could stretch endlessly, or Fluid Man, who literally turned into water. At first glance, it seemed like lighthearted fun, but beneath the laughs, critics called out how the show leaned into exaggerated stereotypes. Some argued it reduced the real-life Globetrotters to caricatures, using slapstick powers instead of celebrating their athletic talent. Others pointed out how villains were often cartoonish depictions of foreign threats, reflecting Cold War anxieties. Behind the scenes, NBC ordered it as a desperate attempt to revitalize Saturday mornings, recycling animation and storylines to cut costs. Kids enjoyed the novelty for a moment, but the ratings collapsed after one season. Even fans of the real Globetrotters felt it was embarrassing, a step down from their cultural reputation. Today, the EIU mix of racial caricatures, paper-thin plots, and lazy animation would be condemned as insensitive and exploitative. The real Globetrotters remain legends, but this cartoon is remembered as a strange footnote that would never air in the modern age of cultural scrutiny. The Brady Kids, 1972. Riding on the success of the Brady Bunch, ABC launched The Brady Kids, an animated spin-off where the wholesome suburban children somehow gained talking pets, a magical bird named Marlin, and even the ability to meet historical figures. It was meant to extend the franchise's reach, but the cartoon quickly went off the rails. The controversy? Critics argued it warped family-friendly themes into bizarre fantasy plots that undercut the original show's values. Parents disliked that the Brady Kids were suddenly interacting with time machines and alien creatures, calling it a surreal distortion of a beloved brand. Behind the scenes, Hanna-Barbera produced it on a shoestring budget, leading to stiff animation and recycled sound effects. Even worse, the voice actors were initially the real Brady cast, but when some refused to return, replacements were hired, angering fans who noticed the inconsistency. The show collapsed after 2 seasons, dismissed as a blatant cash grab. While the Brady Bunch remains a cultural touchstone, the Brady Kids is almost buried in history. Today, networks would balk at the cheap spin-off formula, especially one that mixes family wholesomeness with absurd, tone-deaf fantasy gimmicks. The legacy? Proof that not every beloved live-action hit should become a cartoon. Gilligan's Planet, 1982. Imagine Gilligan's Island, but in space. That was the strange pitch behind Gilligan's Planet. In this animated sequel, the castaways built a spaceship and crash-landed on an alien world. Hanna-Barbera thought kids would eat it up. Sci-fi was booming thanks to Star Wars. Instead, audiences found it ridiculous. The controversy was twofold. First, critics accused it of lazily recycling Gilligan's bumbling persona into every plot, making space exploration seem like a joke. Second, many pointed out how alien characters were drawn as crude stereotypes of foreign cultures, echoing dated tropes instead of imaginative world-building. Behind the scenes, the aging Gilligan cast reluctantly reprised their roles, but even they admitted the concept stretched believability. Animation costs were slashed to bare minimums, with endless looping backgrounds and recycled pratfalls. The result looked cheap compared to the ambitious sci-fi kids were seeing on film. Fans of the original Gilligan's Island were dismayed. Instead of honoring a classic, it became an embarrassing attempt to chase trends. After one season, CBS canceled it and quietly buried reruns. Today, Gilligan's Planet would never be greenlit. Its stereotypes, slapstick treatment of space travel, and sheer absurdity would be criticized as tone-deaf and uninspired. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids, 1973. With a name ripped straight from the iconic Western film, Hanna-Barbera's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids wasn't a gritty cowboy tale. It was a bubblegum pop band adventure series. The premise followed a teenage rock group who doubled as government spies, traveling the world to stop villains while performing catchy songs. The controversy was immediate. Parents and critics accused the show of glorifying teen rebellion and espionage in a way that blurred fantasy with reality. Some argued the use of the Butch Cassidy name trivialized outlaw history, turning a violent figure into a goofy teen idol. Others took issue with its treatment of foreign villains, many drawn with crude stereotypes. Behind the scenes, the show struggled. NBC executives pressured the team to mimic Scooby-Doo's success, which led to recycled chase scenes, predictable mystery plots, and even a talking dog sidekick named Elmo. Critics tore it apart for being derivative, while young audiences quickly lost interest. After just 13 episodes, it was canceled and mostly forgotten, except among die-hard collectors of obscure Saturday morning relics. Today, its shallow spy plots, insensitive depictions, and cringe-worthy attempt to blend rock music with crime fighting would be seen as laughable. It's a reminder of how desperately studios chase trends, often at the expense of quality storytelling. The Hardy Boys, 1969. When ABC adapted the famous Hardy Boys novels into a Saturday morning cartoon, expectations were high. The books were beloved for their wholesome yet thrilling mysteries. But instead of faithful detective work, the animated version added a psychedelic twist. The brothers formed a rock band, solving crimes in between musical numbers. On paper, it seemed like a harmless blend of pop and mystery. In practice, it sparked outrage. Parents accused the show of promoting rebellion through its groovy music sequences and flashy band culture, which felt like an attempt to cash in on the Beatles' craze. Worse, critics complained the mysteries were watered down, riddled with stereotypes, foreign villains with exaggerated accents, damsels in distress, and lazy caricatures of authority figures. Behind the scenes, the show struggled to balance two genres. Hanna-Barbera reused backgrounds and animated the boys stiffly during performances, giving the illusion of cardboard cutouts. The band's songs, though catchy, were criticized as blatant marketing aimed at kids. The series lasted only one season. Unlike the novels, which endure as timeless mysteries, the Hardy Boys cartoon faded into obscurity. Today, networks would never air such a derivative, stereotype-filled adaptation. It feels less like an adventure and more like a psychedelic misfire, remembered only by die-hard animation. Historians. The Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan, 1972. Hanna-Barbera attempted to bring Charlie Chan, the fictional Chinese detective, to Saturday mornings with The Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan. The premise followed Chan and his 12 children solving mysteries, all while running a family band. What doomed it was its reliance on dated cultural portrayals. Critics argued the show leaned into stereotypes about Chinese families, with accents so thick that even young audiences couldn't understand dialogue. After complaints, producers redubbed the voices with American actors, but the damage was done. Many Asian American groups denounced it for reinforcing cliches rather than providing genuine representation. Behind the scenes, production was chaotic. Animators juggled too many characters. 12 kids and a detective meant overcrowded scenes and minimal development. Writers recycled mystery plots from other Hanna-Barbera shows, making it feel like a weak Scooby-Doo knockoff with a cultural twist. The cartoon lasted just one season before vanishing. Unlike Scooby or Josie and the Pussycats, Chan Clan never found rerun success. Today, its reliance on caricatures would be considered unacceptable, instantly sparking backlash. Its legacy? Proof that representation done poorly can do more harm than good. Develin, 1974. ABC's Develin dared to bring Evel Knievel-style stunts into the world of Saturday morning cartoons. The premise followed Ernie Develin, a motorcycle stunt rider who performed dangerous tricks with his siblings as they toured with a circus. At first, it seemed thrilling for kids who idolized daredevils. But controversy struck quickly. Parent groups blasted it for glamorizing reckless behavior, warning children might imitate the stunts. ABC defended the show, claiming it carried moral lessons about responsibility, but the damage was done. Critics also complained about its uneven tone. Was it an action series or a morality play? Behind the curtain, ABC had licensed the idea under pressure from toy companies, eager to cash in on Knievel's popularity. But Evel Knievel himself threatened lawsuits, claiming it was a thinly veiled copy of his brand. Production suffered as writers scrambled to tone down the danger while still keeping excitement alive. The series limped through one season. Unlike Knievel's real-life legend, Develin disappeared almost immediately, with reruns nearly impossible to find. Today, networks wouldn't risk airing a show that essentially teaches kids to risk their lives for thrills. It's remembered now as a cautionary relic, a time when children's cartoons flirted with danger and paid the price. Mr. T, 1983. By the early 80s, Mr. T was a household name thanks to Rocky III and the A-Team. NBC saw an opportunity and built a cartoon empire around him. Mr. T. In it, the Mohawked hero led a team of teenage gymnasts who traveled the world solving crimes. The show initially carried a strong moral message. Each episode ended with Mr. T giving kids advice about honesty, teamwork, and self-respect. But controversy brewed beneath the surface. Critics accused the cartoon of trivializing real-world issues. Episodes tackled drug dealers, international spies, and social problems, far too heavy for slapstick animation. Parents complained that violence was too intense for Saturday mornings. Behind the scenes, writers struggled to balance Mr. T's tough guy persona with kid-friendly lessons. Some episodes came across as frightening or awkward, with villains drawn as grotesque stereotypes. Animation shortcuts and rushed production further damaged its reputation. Despite these flaws, Mr. T lasted 3 seasons thanks to Mr. T's popularity. But today, networks would reject its combination of heavy themes, cultural caricatures, and violent plots. It feels like a well-meaning but misguided attempt to mix celebrity branding with children's entertainment. Its legacy is a curious one, a bold effort that showed how quickly Saturday mornings blurred the line between education, branding, and spectacle. Rubik, The Amazing Cube, 1983. Few cartoons were more blatant about cashing in on a craze than Rubik, The Amazing Cube. CBS launched the show at the height of the Rubik's Cube phenomenon, turning the puzzle into a sentient floating character with magical powers. The plot followed 3 Hispanic siblings who discovered the talking cube and used it to fight bullies and villains. On the surface, it was lighthearted fun, but critics were quick to pounce. Parents' groups complained that the show felt like a half-hour commercial designed to sell puzzles rather than entertain. Some even accused CBS of exploiting Latino representation, using stereotypes for the kids' accents and mannerisms instead of providing authentic cultural depth. Behind the scenes, the show was plagued by rushed writing and poor animation quality. The magical cube could do nearly anything: fly, transform, solve problems instantly, making plots repetitive and predictable. Even children recognized it as a gimmick stretched too far. Though it aired for 2 short seasons, it faded quickly once the Rubik's Cube fad cooled. Today, networks would never air a cartoon so nakedly designed to sell toys without meaningful storytelling. Rubik stands as a neon-colored relic of early 80s marketing disguised as entertainment. Its legacy? Proof that even the most popular fads can't guarantee lasting success if there's no heart behind the storytelling. The Jackson 5, 1978. At the height of Motown's success, the Jackson 5 were transformed into animated heroes in the Jackson 5. The cartoon followed Michael, Jermaine, Tito, Jackie, and Marlon as they juggled pop stardom with wacky adventures around the world. Every episode featured lively music sequences paired with slapstick comedy. Fans adored it at first, but soon the backlash arrived. Critics argued it trivialized the real Jackson family, reducing them to caricatures with exaggerated antics. More troubling were depictions of foreign settings. Episodes set in Africa or Asia leaned on crude stereotypes, which would be instantly condemned today. Behind the curtain, Motown licensed the group's likeness, but kept the Jacksons themselves out of the production process. The voices were performed by actors, not the real family, which fans noticed immediately. Rumors swirled that the Jacksons disliked how their personalities were exaggerated for laughs. Though it lasted 2 seasons, it never gained serious rerun traction. The music survived, but the show itself became a cultural curiosity. Today, networks would never risk such shallow representation, particularly with its blend of racial caricatures and corporate branding. Its legacy lies in its soundtrack, timeless hits buried in a cartoon that history quietly tried to forget. The Freedom Force, 1978. Filmation's The Freedom Force was a bold experiment, combining mythology with superhero adventures. The team included Hercules, Sinbad, Merlin, and even Isis, the Egyptian goddess, as they battled evil across time. At first, it promised to be educational, blending history with fantasy. But controversy erupted when religious groups protested the use of mythological gods and deities in a children's cartoon. Christian organizations accused the show of promoting paganism, while others argued it twisted cultural myths into shallow superhero gimmicks. Behind the scenes, Filmation struggled with a minuscule budget. Episodes often recycled animation from other shows, and entire battle sequences were lifted from earlier productions. Kids tuned out quickly, calling it confusing compared to more straightforward superhero fare like Super Friends. The backlash, combined with poor ratings, doomed the show after just 5 episodes. It vanished almost instantly, rarely seen again outside obscure VHS tapes. Today, its casual treatment of sacred cultural figures and mythological appropriation would be seen as reckless and insensitive. The Freedom Force remains a fascinating relic, a show that tried to merge history, religion, and action, but collapsed under the weight of controversy and poor execution. Pride of the X-Men, 1989. Years before the famous X-Men, the animated series, Marvel attempted a pilot called Pride of the X-Men. It introduced Kitty Pryde joining the team of mutants battling Magneto and his Brotherhood. The animation was flashy, the action intense, but it sparked immediate criticism. Parents' groups objected to the dark tone and heavy violence, unusual for Saturday mornings. Characters like Wolverine snarled threats, while Magneto's schemes carried apocalyptic stakes. Some even complained that the depiction of mutants as hated outcasts mirrored real-world prejudice too closely for children's programming. Behind the scenes, Marvel clashed with networks over tone. Producers wanted something closer to the comic books, while executives demanded lighter fare. Voice casting drew ire, too. Wolverine was inexplicably given an Australian accent, confusing longtime fans. Ratings for the pilot were weak, and networks pulled the plug. Today, Pride of the X-Men would never air in its original form. Its raw violence, allegories of bigotry, and darker themes would be flagged as too mature for young audiences. Yet its legacy endured. It laid the groundwork for the far more successful 1990s X-Men series, showing that sometimes failure paves the way for greatness. Turbo Teen, 1984. Few Saturday morning cartoons were stranger than Turbo Teen. The premise? A teenage boy named Brett could literally transform into a red sports car whenever exposed to extreme heat or cold. His friends then drove him into battle against criminals. Kids found the idea both fascinating and unsettling. Critics, however, were horrified. The transformation sequences showed Brett's body stretching and warping into automotive parts, tires replacing limbs, headlights sprouting from his face. Parents' groups labeled it disturbing and even nightmare fuel for children. Behind the scenes, Ruby Spears Productions was under pressure to create something unique that could compete with Transformers and Knight Rider. But budget limits meant reused animation and stilted plots. Brett's powers were inconsistent, sometimes triggered by ice cubes, other times by car washes, leaving even kids confused. The backlash grew. Psychologists argued the show blurred identity and body horror in ways inappropriate for children. Toy companies hesitated to back it, leaving it with no merchandise support. After 13 episodes, it was canceled and quietly shelved. Today, the grotesque imagery and bizarre body-morphing premise would never pass network standards. Yet Turbo Teen remains infamous, a cult oddity rediscovered online by nostalgic fans who can't believe it ever aired. It's remembered less as a superhero cartoon and more as one of the strangest missteps in Saturday morning history. New Kids on the Block, 1990. As boy band mania swept the globe, ABC turned the chart-topping New Kids on the Block into a Saturday morning cartoon. It followed the real-life singers, Donnie, Jordan, Joey, Jonathan, and Danny, as they balanced fame, concerts, and over-the-top adventures. At first, teen fans tuned in, eager to see their idols animated. But controversy quickly surfaced. Parents and critics accused the show of being little more than a half-hour commercial, pushing records, posters, and merchandise under the guise of storytelling. Episodes often centered around concerts or new songs, blurring the line between narrative and advertising. Behind the scenes, the band members didn't even provide their own voices. Instead, actors performed the dialogue, while real music videos were spliced in awkwardly. This cheap shortcut left fans disappointed and critics scathing. Rumors spread that the band themselves disliked the project, seeing it as exploitation of their image. Ratings collapsed after one season. Unlike the Beatles' earlier cartoon, which found charm in its absurdity, New Kids on the Block was seen as shallow brand building. Today, networks would avoid such a blatant marketing ploy, especially with its flimsy storytelling and forced idol worship. Its legacy? A forgotten attempt to turn chart success into Saturday morning domination, proof that popularity alone doesn't guarantee staying power. The Gary Coleman Show, 1982. At the height of his fame on Different Strokes, Gary Coleman was given his own Saturday morning cartoon. In it, he voiced Andy LeBeau, a wisecracking angel sent back to Earth to help kids solve problems. The concept sounded uplifting, but execution made it controversial. The show leaned heavily on moral lessons, but critics complained that the plots were heavy-handed and manipulative. Parents bristled at the mix of religion and comedy, claiming it trivialized spirituality by turning angels into sitcom punchlines. Some religious groups even protested, calling it blasphemous. Behind the scenes, NBC pushed the show quickly to capitalize on Coleman's fame, giving animators little time to polish scripts or animation. Coleman himself was said to be indifferent, treating it as just another contract obligation. Viewers noticed the lack of heart, and ratings sank quickly. The show lasted only one season, disappearing from reruns almost entirely. Today, it would face even more scrutiny, with debates about mixing celebrity branding, religion, and children's entertainment. Its legacy is bittersweet, a star at his peak reduced to an awkward cartoon experiment that audiences quickly abandoned. It highlights how networks often overextended celebrities into formats that never truly fit. Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, 1972. For over a decade, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids was a Saturday morning staple. It followed Albert and his friends, the Junkyard Gang, as they navigated childhood lessons in urban Philadelphia. Every episode ended with a moral message, and even a live-action segment reinforcing the lesson. At the time, it was groundbreaking. It gave representation to black children in a medium where they were rarely seen. Yet even during its run, controversies brewed. Critics complained about the exaggerated character designs and nicknames, Mushmouth, Dumb Donald, Weird Harold, which some felt leaned on stereotypes rather than empowering portrayals. Parents' groups questioned whether such caricatures did more harm than good. Behind the scenes, Bill Cosby maintained tight control, using the show as his personal platform. Episodes tackled serious issues like smoking, vandalism, and bullying, but the didactic tone sometimes felt heavy-handed. Some affiliates refused to air episodes they deemed too real for kids. Today, the show's legacy is clouded not only by its dated portrayals, but also by the public downfall of its creator. Networks avoid airing it altogether, and its once-praised moral lessons are overshadowed by controversy. Fat Albert stands as both a trailblazer and a cautionary tale, a reminder of how cultural shifts and personal scandals can completely reshape the way a show is remembered. Saturday mornings once belonged to wild experiments, cartoons that pushed boundaries, sold toys, or blurred culture and controversy. Today, most of them would never make it past network lawyers or parent watchdogs. But maybe that's what makes them fascinating relics of their time. Which of these forgotten cartoons shocked you most? Like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.